We here at TripleJump like a challenge and have beaten our fair share of intimidating overlords, titanic guardians, and vengeful gods in our time. We usually have fun doing it too, but sometimes things can leave the realm of enjoyably challenging and slip into the dimension of curse-inducingly infuriating.
Jesus! Sir! Dead immediately. Wow, okay. That was a horrible attempt. We can do better than that, that's for sure. Run, dude. Okay, that was just a one-hit kill. Shouldn't have done that. Need to heal. Idiot. Silly boy. Pretty sure the clown dabbed over your corpse. Well, in that case, it's on. And by on, I mean I'm doing it again.
Whether due to sneaky mechanics, lack of balance, or downright excessive difficulty purposefully programmed by sadistic developers, there are some video game bosses that would likely cause the average gamer to calmly put the controller down and walk away. We're looking at some of these today. 10 video game boss fights that caused so much consternation you probably gave up and did something else just to cool off. We won't be including Soulspawn bosses though, as they have a video all of their own. You should watch that after this. Anyway, enough preamble. It's time for you to follow me into this suspiciously large room, which was preceded by a room suspiciously filled with ammo and health pickups, as we discuss some boss fights that had us spouting enough curse words to outdo The Last of Us, Rogue Warrior, and Conker's Bad Fur Day combined. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 frustrating video game bosses that you probably didn't beat. Number 10. Shao Kahn, Mortal Kombat 2. Let's start things off with a classic, that's classic with a K by the way, with Mortal Kombat 2's main antagonist, the Emperor of the Outworld, Shao Kahn. This muscle-bound, skull-helmed maniac took over from original MK antagonist Shang Tsung and proved to be an impenetrable wall of muscle and spiky bits for most would-be conquerors, also spelled with a K that. As a combatant, K again, in a one-on-one fighting game, Shao Kahn has it all. He's huge, he hits like a truck, he can near flawlessly predict your attack patterns, has surprising speed, and is capable of unleashing devastating supernatural powers. His taunting game is on point too, as this brutal brawler will make sure to constantly remind you of your paltry insignificance when he's not grinding your face into the arena dirt. While similarly difficult 2D fighting game bosses like M. Bison and Rugal Bernstein are generally beatable by skillful players, the only real strategy against Shao Kahn is to unleash the cheese. Projectile spam, teleportation, and uppercut combos and lots of bloody-minded tenacity are the orders of the day if you want to bring an end to this guy's reign of terror. Don't feel bad though, he'd absolutely do the same to you. Number 9. Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! We'll keep the fists flying for this second entry with the first video game appearance of a real-life athlete who had something of a final boss status throughout a long career in combat sports. Nintendo's 2D boxing title Mike Tyson's Punch-Out helped to define the phrase Nintendo hard, and this was in no small part due to the titular pugilist's memorable appearance as the final in-game opponent. After navigating a whole division of menacing brawlers, protagonist Little Mac steps up to the fight of his life against real-life boxing legend Mike Tyson. This pixelated version of Iron Mike is every bit as devastating as his non-digitized counterpart was in his prime, capable of throwing punches that would leave most normal humans seeing stars for weeks, and able to defend against all but the most perfectly timed attacks. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out goes hard with the intimidation factor too, with Mr. Tyson absolutely towering over both Little Mac and that very familiar-looking referee, proving that Nintendo really never concerned themselves too much with concepts like scaling. The only way to beat this oversized champ is to maintain constant composure while flawlessly dodging, blocking, and counterpunching Mike's energy-sapping blows. Oh, and get the hell out of there if he goes for the ear. Number 8. Nuclear Armadillo, Ninja Gaiden 2. The Ninja Gaiden games, whether we're talking about the NES trilogy or the modern reboot series, are infamous for their difficulty, and many of the enemies faced by protagonist Ryu Hayabusa rank highly in the pantheon of notorious boss encounters. None of them have a trick up their sleeve that's quite as dastardly as the Nuclear Armadillo from Ninja Gaiden 2, though. Encountered at the end of the Flying Fortress Daedalus chapter, this unstable critter looks like what might happen if you crossed Mighty with an active volcano, and represents yet another dangerous roadblock on Hayabusa's fiend-slaying adventure. There are tougher bosses in the game, but this apocalyptic armadillo stands out not because of its fire-based attacks and titanic proportions, but because it explodes when killed, and this detonation, as hinted at by the creature's name, is enough to vaporize poor Hayabusa in one blast. The solution is to hold block, but first-time players who rightly assumed that a defensive stance with a katana wouldn't do much to counteract a nuclear blast were likely to find themselves having to whittle down this monstrosity's ample health bar all over again. Also, So later on you have to fight 2 of these fellows at once, but it's okay because you're going to remember to block this time, right? Right? Number 7. Tricky the Triceratops, Diddy Kong Racing. Those who grew up with the Nintendo 64 were likely very familiar with Mario Kart 64, a game that offers a challenge for those who are looking for it but can be seen in its entirety even by the clumsiest players thanks to an accessible lower difficulty level and the ability to partake in each race in a cup whether you placed highly or not. When Diddy Kong Racing came along, said players might have expected a similar sort of experience, and said players were likely to have received quite the wake-up call when coming face to face with an early boss encounter with the tri-horned terror known as Tricky the Triceratops. While Diddy Kong Racing is definitely a kart racer, it also has pronounced action-adventure aspects with a storyline, collectibles to sniff out, and, of course, boss battles. The first of these kart-based clashes proved to be a huge roadblock for young Nintendo fans, as Tricky more than lives up to his name. In fact, they may as well have called him Cheaty. Jumping the starting signal, trampling the player, and shrugging off gigantic rolling boulders are just a few of the dastardly dino's tricks, making the Speedysaurus a prehistoric pain in the rear. Number 6. Viconia de Veer, Baldur's Gate 3. In Baldur's Gate 3, longtime series fans were given the opportunity to reconnect with some old friends, with dignitaries like Minsk and Jaheira showing up to help in their own ways. Another fan favourite from the original games is Viconia de Veer, but your run-in with her in Baldur's Gate 3 is likely to be a lot less friendly. Should your party come to blows with the Drow, things can turn very ugly, with the player party starting out of position and Viconia being backed up by a small army of Sharan cultists. Being heavily outnumbered is nothing unusual at this point in the game, but this particular encounter layers on the vexation by giving many of Viconia's companions the ability to cast the spell Darkness, flooding the battlefield in impenetrable murk and leaving your group of hardened fighters incapable of making ranged attacks and flailing uselessly in melee. Most advice for the fight consists of various cheesy tactics like initiating combat before the dialogue triggers or utilizing nastily positioned area of effect spells from afar, but you could always use Shadowheart's one-time only divine intervention attack for an easy win. What if there's an even harder fight against darkness-based enemies later on though? Best to keep hold of it. Number 5. Zoran Lazarevic, Uncharted 2, Among Thieves. Let's get things a bit more grounded for our next entry, moving from a spooky Drow cleric of darkness to Serbian intelligence officer, paramilitary commander, and obsessive Shambhala seeker Zoran Lazarevic. Serving as the primary antagonist of Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, Zoran is the picture of grim tenacity and will thwart the much more agreeable Nathan Drake's quest to find the lost city of Shambhala repeatedly throughout the adventure. This all comes to a head towards the end of the game, where Zoran and Nathan finally come to blows one-on-one. However, a stand-up fight between the two would be more than a little one-sided in favor of the bad guy, so Nathan has to use his quick thinking and agility to win the day. What this translates to for the player is an absolutely harrowing experience where Zoran will be mercilessly chasing them down and they will have to be constantly moving to avoid being flattened by Zoran's devastating melee attacks and shotgun blasts. Uncharted fans will remember an incredibly difficult boss fight where a single lapse in concentration results in an untimely and violent demise, and only supreme focus will win the day. That or being lucky enough to get the glitch where he stops moving. That'll do the trick too. Number 4. Maz Koshia, The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. You know those creepy mummified monks in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild? The ones that give you a spirit orb and a bit of encouragement for completing a shrine before fading away into sparkly dust. Yes, well, you'd have to fight one in the Champions Ballad DLC, and he is an absolute barrel of laughs, let me tell you. Known as Maz Koshia, this ancient mentor-like figure challenges Link to combat at the conclusion of his quest, and he has quite the repertoire of moves up his mummified sleeves. Equipped with a monstrous health bar, old Maz has the ability to produce multiple clones of himself, perform teleportation tricks, and even enlarge into a looming, levitating form that launches devastating projectiles from above. Taking him on in Master Mode is especially infuriating, as he'll regenerate health while cloned, meaning that if you're not lucky enough to find the original Maz Koshia in time, you could be right back to square one. At least you can distract him with a banana and get some hits in, so, it's not all bad news. This is exactly why I carry a banana around with me. You never know when you're going to need to distract an assailant. Number 3. Galactus, Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Fate of Two Worlds. Usually, when there's a size advantage in fighting games, it's a Guile versus Zangief situation. You know, the sort of size advantage you might see in real life. Not so with the appearance of Galactus in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, as this guy really just isn't playing fair, to be honest. It's not just the overwhelming mass of this planet-consuming cosmic entity that makes him such a tough battle, though, as he has plenty of other nasty maneuvers in his intergalactic repertoire, including instantly creating minions to do his bidding and unleashing a variety of extremely damaging grapple attacks. When all of these fail, he'll resort to some good old-fashioned laser spam, filling the screen with nigh unavoidable beams of deadly cosmic energy for long stretches of time, as if he's the final boss of one of those bullet hell-style shoot-em-ups. Silly Galactus, this is a fighting game, please stop, please, just calm down. Pro players will tell you that all of his moves can be blocked or avoided by using super jumps or activating an assist, but pro fighting game players are another species, and us normies are just left to flounder uselessly in front of the big purple fellow's overwhelming supremacy. Honestly though, I wouldn't want to fight against a billions of years old, terrifying and unimaginably powerful godlike being to go any other way. Number 2. Hiruko, Shinobi. Shinobi, released in 2002 for the PS2, follows Hotsuma, a young warrior tasked with representing Sega's flagship ninja series as it made its first tentative steps into the 3D world. Generally well received by critics, this action-packed hack-and-slash provided what you'd expect from a 3D ninja adventure game: plenty of fast-paced, visceral combat, and a meaty challenge. The final confrontation in Hotsuma's journey is especially infamous for its difficulty, as the ambitious and powerful sorcerer known as Hiruko has a lot of tenacity for an old fellow. Capable of levitating and spending most of the fight well out of range of Hotsuma's attacks, Hiruko is one of those bosses that's a master of avoidance, meaning he's sure to frustrate impatient players who are eager to get up close and cause some damage. He'll even levitate over certain death drops in his vulnerable state, goading players to try and attack him and risk a plummet to an untimely end below. Not content with just hovering around like an annoying wasp though, Hiruko will liberally sprinkle the player with various elemental attacks, summoning papery minions and erect magical barriers, all while emoting in an obnoxiously bratty voice due to the fact that he magically acquired unnatural youth partway through the game. Ugh, insufferable. Number 1. Young, the Last Remnant. Speaking of insufferable, how about this guy? Young is an enemy general faced in a multi-stage event towards the end of janky but lovable Xbox 360 RPG, The Last Remnant. While The Last Remnant is usually quite manageable, it does have more than a couple of enormous difficulty spikes that saw most players give up and move on to something less punishing. The first of these roadblocks is the rather unsightly Gates of Hell, who could also have easily qualified for the list, but tenacious players who conquered this mountain only had an even bigger obstacle to come, and instead of a disgusting mass of serpentine heads, this one is a bloke with a ponytail. Oh no! Known as Young, this cocky so-and-so is an absolute nightmare to fight, with his squad of tough companions, ability to act multiple times per round, and high chance of unleashing an unblockable brawl attack that deals outrageous damage that pretty much spells instant death for all but your toughest allies. To make matters worse, level grinding won't work, as The Last Remnant has a particular level scaling mechanic that could see dedicated grinders making Young even more powerful, if not unbeatable. Definitely best to walk away from this one while you're still young. We do have fun.